When you're solving quadratics with the square root property, you have to remember how to do square roots. That's why that was our lesson first. Radical is an expression with square roots and cube roots. The radical symbol is just the sign, that symbol. It could be square root if there's a 2 here or nothing. It can be cube root if there's a 3 there. The first 20 perfect squares, 1 is 1 times 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3, 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5, 25, 36, 49, 7 times 7, 8, 64, 9 times 9 is 81, 100, 10 times 10, 11 times 11 is 121, 12 times 12 is 144. I'm getting to where I need a calculator. Just to check, 13 times 13 is 1, I want to say 69, but hold on. 13 times 13, 169. 14 times 14, 196. 15 times 15, 225. 16 times 16, 256. 17 times 17, 289. 18 times 18, 324. I don't expect you to know up here. It just says the first 20, so I have to go to the first 20. 19 squared, 3, continue working, 361. Hold on. 18 squared, 324. No. 19 squared, 361. And lastly, 20 squared, 400. All right. There we go. All our radicals. So you should know the square root of 49 is 7, because that's 7 times 7. Every 2, 1 comes out. Nothing left in the radical. I went ahead and did all the prime factorizations just to speed up this video a little bit. 225 breaks down to 5, 5, 3, and 3. Every 2, 1 comes out. Every 2, 1 comes out. So this is a 3 and a 5, so that's 15. So the square root of 225, which is on this list, so you know it's nice, is 15. In case you don't, you can still break it all down, just like this one. You should know what 144 is, but if you don't, break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 3. 2, 1 comes out, every 2, 1 comes out, every 2, 1 comes out. If there's already a number out here, this 2 stays out here. And then you bring a 2, the 2, and a 3 out. 2, 4, 8 times 3 is 24. A lot easier if you know what the square root of 144 is. Square root of 144 is 12, so 2 times 12 is 24. Way quicker, but if you don't know it, then that's what you do. When you're dividing radicals, you take the square root of the top and the square root of the bottom and just simplify. The square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3. Same thing here. The square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 81 is 9. The square root of 36 is 6, the square root of 121 is 11. You should know these. Square root of 112, I do not know, but I broke it all down. 4 2s and a 7. So 2 2s come on the outside. The 7 cannot group, so it stays on the inside. So you have 4 square root 7. 224, 5 times 7 times 7. So 7 square root 5. 5 square root 3 2s, 2, 3, 2 3s, 2 and a 3 come out. So 5 times 2 times 3 square root 2. 6 times 5 is 30 square root 2. I know I'm going quick. You'll probably have to pause this video. But this is a review, and this is not what I want you to like focus your time on. I want you to know this already. 3 times 3 times 5. So 27 square root 5. 2 times 5 times 5 times 5. 5 square root 10. This one took me forever to figure out it was 17. I didn't know that. I had to just sit there and divide. 17 comes out. And what's 3 times 17? 3 times 17 is 51 square root 2. All right, so that's reviewing your radicals. Why we have to review that is because that's how you're going to solve a quadratic equation. If it is in the form ax squared plus c equals 0, you can solve it using square root. The main thing about solving with square root is you can only do these if there's an x squared but not an x. So the trinomials ax squared plus bx plus c, if there's an x term, you cannot use the square root method. That's why we still have to know how to factor. Okay, so if there's not an x term, you get the term, you isolate the term or terms being squared and take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root, don't forget plus or minus because it could be a positive 64 or negative 64. So what I mean by that, get what's being squared alone. So x squared is being squared. So I'm going to get rid of the 64, add it over. And then there's two numbers squared that gives me 64. Obviously, 8 times 8 gives you 64, or negative 8 times 8 gives you 64. So when you take the square root of both sides to get rid of the squared, don't forget plus or minus. So plus or minus the square root of 64. 2, I'm going to get the squared alone. Divide over by 7, so x squared equals 1. To get rid of the squared, you take the square root of both sides, and when you take the square root, you put plus or minus. So you have the positive x equals positive square root of 1, which is just 1. And x equals negative square root of 1, so negative 1. And you can check these and your solving ones just by plugging in your answer. If I plug in 1, 7 times 1 squared plus 8, well, you square first. 1 squared is 1 times 7 is 7 plus 8 is 15. Same thing with negative 1. Subtract over your 5. It's 16. Divide over by 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Take the square root of both sides. When you take the square root, don't forget plus or minus. This is an answer. Like, this is 2 answers. I just want to keep writing it as 2 so you see that you have 2 answers here. X equals positive square root of negative 2 and negative square root of 2. So sometimes they don't break down into nice numbers. Sometimes you will have a square root in both of your answers. Sometimes you'll have it in one of your answers. Usually just both. All right. Isolate what's being squared. So subtract 1. 8x squared equals 16. Divide over by 8. Is this not the same question? Oh, basically, but no. Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget plus or minus. So x equals square root of 2. X equals negative square root of 2. Add over 9, you get 64. Divide over by 2, I get 32. Take the square root of both sides. Don't forget plus or minus. X equals positive square root of 32. X equals negative square root of 32. 32 breaks down, so you have to break it down. That's why we just reviewed radicals. 1 and 16, 4 and 4, 2 and 2, 2 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 twos. Every 2, 1 comes out. Every 2, 1 comes out. So 4 square root 2. And I did it once already. I don't have to do it twice. So I know this is 4 square root 2. So this one would be negative 4 square root 2. All right. 6 is the same thing. Get what's being squared alone. It already is. X plus 5 is what's being squared. Take the square root of both sides. So x plus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 49 is 7. Write your two equations. So x plus 5 equals 7. X plus 5 equals negative 7. And then you have to solve both. So sometimes it's a little trickier when it's not one term being squared, but two terms being squared. It's not bad to check it. 2 plus 5 is 7. Squared is 49. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. Negative 7 times negative 7, or negative 7 squared, is positive 49. So those both work. Divide by 3. X plus 7 squared equals 2/3. This is an easy one. Take the square root of both sides. Oops. So get rid of that. X plus 7 equals plus or minus the square root of 2/3. Okay. So x plus 7 equals the square root of 2/3. X plus 7 equals negative square root of 2/3. Square root of 2/3 is the square root of 2 over the square root of 3. And you can't leave a radical in the denominator. So I have to rationalize it. I have to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 3. So I get square root of 6 over the square root of 9. And the square root of 9 is just 30. You can't simplify that anymore. So then I'm going to just subtract over my 7. And that would be your answer. So we already simplified this. So x plus 7 equals negative square root of 6 over 3. I'm subtract over my 7. That was a hard one. Rationalizing in there. Add over 27. Trying to get what's being squared alone. 27 minus 23 is 4. Divide over by 4. Take the square root of both sides. So x minus 6 equals plus or minus the square root of 1, which is just 1. X minus 6 equals 1. X minus 6 equals negative 1. And solve both of them. So x equals 7. And x equals 5. Last one. Then you have a delta math to go try on your own. 25 minus 15 is 10. Divide over by 4. Take the square root of both sides. Plus or minus 10 over 4. I'm going to go ahead and simplify that before I break it down. Because the square root of 10 is 2 and 5. No group of 2 can come out of that. But you do know the square root of 4, you should know, is 2. So I can take a 2 out. So I have x minus 9 equals positive square root of 10 over 2. And x minus 9 equals negative square root of 10 over 2. And then just add over your 9. So 9 plus square root of 10 over 2. And 9 minus square root of 10 over 2. These last 4 are definitely the most complicated, but they'll help later on if you can pick this up now, because there's another method that uses this method in it. All right, do your best. Delta math. Remember, in Delta math, if you get stuck, you can always look at the answer. I see a lot of you guys looking at the answer, and then I also see a lot of you watching the videos. So whichever helps you. Turn in both of these notes just so I can check you off that you did your classwork today. All right, thank you. Bye.